Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. Oh no, she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to be on TV. She didn't like that. She wasn't ready. She wasn't ready. This is terrible. This is terrible for the podcast. Look, that's you. Look. This is Georgina, everybody. This is my baby. She's a diva. She's a diva. Apparently, she doesn't want to be on the podcast. She wasn't ready. All right. See, this is what happens when you do it live and in the flesh. Sean Callahan said it's a baby. Yes, that is Georgina Panizo, my firstborn, born last August. Right before the day before Inter Miami's Leagues Cup championship game against the Seattle Sounders, which they lost. Yeah, Sean Callahan 8080 says she's just being dramatic. Oh well, yeah, she's a complete diva. She actually almost never cries. She's a really good baby. She must have really gotten scared or something. I don't know. Poor baby. Because she doesn't really cry. She only complains when she's hungry or cranky, which she was neither right now. She just woke up from a nap, but I guess she's a diva. She's a diva. She's diva in the making. But at least you guys got to see her. For you Messi fans or people that think I'm that big of a troll that I would name my daughter after Cristiano Ronaldo's wife, just in spite of Messi, which I don't think anyone actually believes that, but never know with the Messi bots out there. She's named after my late father, whose name was Jorge George. So there you go. That's how she got that's how she got her name. Simon Evans reporting. We all know how Georgina feels. I guess, man. I don't know. I've never seen you cry like that on the pod. Maybe a couple of times when I drilled a take into you, but aside from that, haven't seen it. Welcome everybody to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I am Franco Panizo. A bit of a different and unusual opening there, but I was trying to give you guys a nice little glimpse of what Georgina's all about, but she's not cooperating today. No worries. We still have plenty of Inter Miami stuff to talk about in the chilly South Florida. Got my Adidas James Bond jacket on. Pedri Potter with, of course, always with the lines here. Pedri Potter.free speech says learning to cry from her father, it seems. I like it. I'm not mad at that, Pedri Potter. We will talk a lot about Inter Miami, of course. This is an Inter Miami focused podcast. We've got a game to recap, and I don't know if analyze is the right word, but we can draw some conclusions, have some takeaways. Inter Miami losing 3-0 to Alianza Lima in Peru. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Sergio Reguilon's injury, where things stand. And we will talk about the upcoming match in Colombia, in Medellin, against Atletico Nacional this weekend. I will be there. Yours truly is flying to Colombia. And no, I'm not Colombian. I am Peruvian. But Georgina is half Colombian. My missus is from Medellin. Georgina has family in Medellin that she has not met. So we figured we'd kill two birds with one stone. This is why, you see the haircut. Just got it. I don't normally comb it like this. My barber did that. But I will be in Colombia this weekend to bring you live reporting, sights and sounds from the Atletico Nacional Inter Miami preseason friendly, which for Javier Mascherano and his team's sake goes better than it did in Lima this past weekend. Nader 10 LM, hola Franco, hola Nader. Of course, give us a like, a share, a comment, a subscribe, leave us a review, positive or negative. If you want to leave us a line like Pedri Potter, that's fine too. As you can see or hear, I am by myself on this week's show. None of the other co-hosts could make it. I don't know. I saw Simon Evans in the comment section, but he's a star of his own, so couldn't make it onto the show. Jose and Andrea are tied up. Well, listen, Inter Miami won MLS Cup, so if there's a stigma out there or a perception that Andrea won't show up because they won MLS Cup, it is what it is. It is what it is. I can't dispel that notion. Only she can do that by appearing on the show. But yes, we got a lot of Inter Miami things to talk about. I'm on my own, but I'm with you guys. Love the bantering, love the talking, love the analysis, the viewpoints, the opinions, all of the good stuff. We'll do it all here. I fly out tomorrow, so yeah, we'll try to get the show in that usual time limit. So let's get it going. Let's begin. Inter Miami travels to Lima, Peru last Friday for the Saturday friendly. Now, after we recorded the show, the first show of the year, Jose, Armando, and myself, well, there was some news, right? There was news from both teams. And for Alianza Lima, it wasn't good. 3 of the starters, 3 national team players, were accused of sexual assault. And that led to real negative vibes in that part of Lima, or at least with Alianza Lima fans who are already upset because Alianza Lima, who's one of the big teams historically in Peru, is one of the big teams currently, hasn't really been competing to the level that fans expect. And their main rival has won the last 3 championships in Peruvian First Division. So Alianza Lima fans were already tense, and then this news comes out. There was apparently a party of sorts, or a gathering of sorts, inside La Concentración, which would be inside the team hotel, which obviously you're not supposed to be doing. And then obviously there's the accusation. So that led to some really negative vibes going into the game. In Peru, the game was moved to earlier kickoff, but it was held nonetheless. Tickets weren't great even before this sexual assault news came out. So it wasn't the best attended game, but that wasn't the reason. There was really high ticket prices, and that was being talked about all week leading into the news that came out on Thursday. But Inter Miami travels on Friday. They announce the contract agreement with Rocco Rios Novo. So he's in for 2026 and beyond. A transfer was agreed upon. No figure was given, but he is back. The MLS Cup final starter and champion returns for a longer stay. And joining him will be MLS. I don't know if veteran's the right term. He's been in MLS, but he hasn't been in MLS that long. We'll say MLS experienced shot stopper Luis Barraza, he's played for New York City FC, he's played for DC United. He's also officially on the books for Inter Miami. So you have what are your presumed 3 goalkeepers for 2026, and that would be Dane St. Clair, Rocco Rios Novo, and Luis Barraza. Obviously, Dane St. Clair, you figure, is going to be the starter. He started over the weekend, which, I'm curious how Rocco Rios Novo takes that on, because he has signed for several years. Obviously, he's not going to be the preferred choice, but maybe he likes, working his way into that spot. Obviously, he's one injury away or a red card away from going back into the starting lineup. This was Inter Miami starting lineup against Alianza Lima. You had Dane St. Clair in goal. We will circle back to Dane St. Clair because something very interesting last week. You're right back, and it was I guess you could say it was the 4-3-3. Yeah. Ian Frey at right back. Center back partnership of Maximiliano Falcon and Noah Allen. Left back was Sergio Reguilon. Midfield 3, going off memory here, I don't have it in front of me. Rodrigo De Paul, Telasco Segovia, and why am I blanking on the other one? Help me out here, guys. Trying to think here. Rodrigo De Paul, Telasco Segovia. It'll come to me. Up top, you had Messi, Suarez, and Silvetti. Was it Bright that started as well? I think it was Bright that started. Yeah, I think it was Yannick Bright, actually. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, Pedri Potter. That free speech says shin kicker Bright. So there you go. Midfield 3, De Paul, Bright, and Segovia. Up top, your 3 attackers. Suarez as the 9, Messi, and Silvetti on either side. Tayo Allende, not yet in camp. Mikael, not yet in camp. I hope that's how you say his name. So that was your starting lineup. we will get to Dane St. Clair in a moment because I thought he had a very good game. But the biggest news, and I think the biggest takeaway from this game is what transpires in about 10 minutes. And that is at least from an Inter Miami standpoint, and that is the injury to Sergio Reguilon. Goes down after a harsh or a strong tackle. I don't know if harsh tackle is the right frame. Maybe some people have that opinion. A strong tackle. And I don't know if it was that caused the injury or if it was prior to that he felt something, because there is images of where he might have felt something just moments before that. Either way, Sergio Reguilon picks up an injury. The Spanish left back tasked with replacing Jordi Alba this season, tended to on the field. He cannot continue. He has to be substituted. He does not go on. Who came in for him? I believe it was Facundo Mura, who played as the then right back. Ian Frey tucked in centrally next to Peluca Falcon at the heart of the defense, or the spine of the defense, and then Noah Allen pushed out wide into the left back role. Now, we got an update of sorts from Inter Miami today, and I say of sorts because it's the usual vague injury update that Inter Miami is known for, if you've been paying attention over the last few years. And that is this, quote, Inter Miami has provided an injury update presented by Baptist Health for Sergio Reguilon. The player has undergone medical examinations that confirmed he is suffering from a grade 2 knee sprain in his right leg, and his timeline for returning to the field will be determined as his recovery progresses, end quote. It doesn't sound good for Sergio Reguilon. It sounds like he's going to be missing some time. Now, we don't have a timeline because Inter Miami, which is allowed, MLS rules permit this, Inter Miami opts not to disclose expected timelines for recovery. For whatever reason, they decide to do that. But there's a medical staff, there's an injury diagnosis. Privately, they know roughly how long he's going to be out. Now, I know Pedri Potter hates this, but when Inter Miami doesn't provide information in something as sencillo, as simple as this, then guess what? We are left to speculate. So we will speculate here. It seems like he will miss several weeks. I would be surprised if he makes it to the start of the season opener, the CONCACAF Champions Cup opener. I would be surprised. This is not inside information. This is just my supposition. I'm just going off of what we've seen, going off of what we have here. Maybe he misses many months. It's possible. We don't know because we haven't gotten an update on that. They have that. They know that. Javier Mascherano and his medical staff and his technical staff, they know behind the scenes that he's going to miss X amount of time. But we don't know that. So, again, we have to speculate. It's a big loss for Inter Miami because Jordi Alba obviously is one of the biggest absences, or one of the biggest departures after retiring at the end of last season. Reguilon was supposed to be the player that came in and filled in for him, as I'm not going to say seamlessly, but he was the one that had to come in and help fill those shoes. There have been a lot of question marks about Sergio Reguilon's health coming into his time with Inter Miami because he has not played all that much in recent years, and he has a lengthy grocery list of injuries that he's picked up throughout his career. I mean, Reguilon, if you look, and I'm looking here, assuming this is all correct and nothing is missing here, his last game before this preseason friendly, his last competitive game was May of last year. So you're talking 8 months without competitive football, without competitive soccer. And this was an appearance he made for Tottenham against Aston Villa. He played 16 minutes last May 16th of 2025. His previous appearance in a game before that, again, assuming this is all correct, was in January Yeah, January of 25. So he's not someone who's had normal routine, normal minutes. Clearly, he had to work at getting back to his best fitness, and that was what this preseason was going to be about for him at that left back position, which is now, I won't say a problem, but something that has to be resolved. It's something that has to be addressed. We'll see how it gets addressed, because if he's out for a prolonged period of time, now Javier Mascherano already after one game in preseason has to move pieces around. Who are the pieces that could play there? Noah Allen is the most likely candidate, or maybe the most obvious option. He's a natural left back, or he grew up playing as a left back, although he's been playing a lot of center back for Inter Miami in recent years. So he's the obvious potential first choice. Facundo Mura is another choice, because this is what he said when we talked to him a week ago or so about positionally where he can play. He mentions left back in addition to right back. So let's listen to this, and we'll come back and continue to talk about the Reguilon injury.
Bueno, como extremo tal vez jugaba cuando era niño, después con el tiempo me fue tocando jugar tal vez en el medio campo y me terminé afianzando como lateral en primera división. Me ha tocado hacerlo tanto de lateral por derecha como lateral por izquierda. Entonces, bueno, siento que por ahí desde ese lado puedo aportarle al equipo en más de una función y nada, siento que más allá del perfil es una posición que me sienta cómodo y que me permite ser una pieza importante para el equipo, tanto en la parte defensiva como también colaborando para poder atacar.
Gracias.
A lot of stock answer there from Facundo Mura in terms of what he can bring to the team. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, don't understand Spanish, the key point was that he says he can play right back as well as left back. He said he likes to contribute to the attack as well as the defense. It's a pretty standard answer, but the fact that he can play left back makes him an option there now. Does Inter Miami consider going into the market to bring in another left back to help provide coverage? Maybe. Possible. Depends on how serious the injury is in terms of the recovery. But maybe they try to make do with Mura and Noah Allen. If that's enough to hold strong for the start of the year, Champions Cup, I mean, the games will tell us, the performances will tell us, the results will tell us. But obviously, this is a blow. This is a big blow for Inter Miami at the start of preseason. And for Reguilon, obviously, unlucky. Now, I'm going to, again, because we haven't spoken to Reguilon, we haven't spoken to Mascherano. He didn't talk after the game to media in Peru. He didn't talk. He's not talking this week, from what I know. So we won't get answers as to if the injury happened through contact or if the injury happened just before. Because Jose Armando, our beloved co-host here, says there's images of Reguilon in discomfort before. If it was before, then that's very unlucky and unfortunate, but not something that you could not foresee. Because again, he's had a list of injuries, and maybe this is the best solution you could come up with if you're Inter Miami for replacing Jordi Alba, or what you thought was the best way to find someone that's played at a high level, that could fit into the salary budget and can provide quality. But obviously, there is that injury concern. And now at the start of preseason, it's another injury for Sergio Reguilon, who had actually gone into preseason very positive. You know, he was feeling good. He was feeling healthy. And he said he was ready to show his teammates what he was about. We'll listen to Sergio Reguilon, because we spoke to him about a week ago or so. This is what he had to say about his mindset coming into the preseason.
Bueno, es verdad que tengo un tiempo ahí parado, pero de competición, no de entrenamiento, que he estado trabajando sin parar todos los días, y la verdad que me encuentro físicamente espectacular, muy sano, muy en forma y con muchísimas ganas de empezar con mis compañeros y demostrar todo, porque es verdad que bueno, tuve ahí un problemilla personal de familia, pues estuve más un poquito ausente y ahora es momento de rendir en el campo.
The last part, he said, is now it's time to rendir en el campo. Now it's time to perform on the field. It's going to have to wait. It's going to have to wait. And that's moved the pieces around for Inter Miami. I don't know, man. I think, I'm curious what you guys think. When the games get going, who do you think is the first choice? Is it Noah Allen or Facundo Muda? I mean, for Muda, you have to imagine it's not his preferred position. It's not his strongest position. He's probably playing de otro perfil. He's probably playing on his off foot, right? Because he's probably right-footed. Because again, Muda was projected to fight for Ian Frey for the right back spot. So you would have a right-footed left back. Do you want that? Is Noah Allen rated high enough? Because clearly they've tried to replace him at center back. He hasn't played a whole lot of left back. Tough. I'm curious to see what Mascherano does there. But Noah Allen, I think, will get the shot. We'll see. Nader says, I have heard he will be out for a month. Claudio Rabstan 7179 says, fuck these Europeans and South Americans with slow signal or Wi-Fi connections today. Don't know what that means. Don't know what you're referring to. Sean Callahan 8080 says, Muda got bodied. Luis Barrios 9533. They need to go fast for a right back option with MLS. What else? Let's see. Sorry I haven't gotten to your comments. I'm in preseason form, man. I got the baby here at the beginning of the show. Trying to get through all the topics, touch on the right things. I don't want to miss any important details, which I probably will. And then, of course, the comments are coming in strong and heavy. Luis Barrios 9533. Long grade 2 knee damage 3 to 6 weeks. Add at least 2 to 4 weeks to practice upon return. Plus then time to get back to form, and it's easily 2-3 months. Inter Miami better look for a replacement now for CONCACAF Champions Cup. And that's where it really hurts, because Inter Miami's main goal for 2026 is the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Jorge Mas said that to us before MLS Cup final. He has reiterated that here at the start of preseason. That is Inter Miami's ultimate goal for this year. And that test, or those tests, come quick and early. It's not like, they get to find their best form and find the best team, and in the summertime, Mascherano gets to take on that challenge. No, it's right away. It's right away. So if Reguilon misses as much time as people fear, it's a strike against Inter Miami what they want to accomplish. And here's a good question from Karina M. Azul 2498. Why St. Clair doesn't train on cameras yet? And before we get to that, Kevin Santiago Guevara Rodríguez 3676. Saludos desde Colombia. Saludos, Kevin. Mañana estaré en Medallo. Mañana estaré en Medellín, en Colombia, con la familia. Y estaré presente en el estadio el sábado. I just said I'll be there in Colombia tomorrow, and I will be at the stadium on Saturday. For those who don't speak and understand Spanish. With regards to St. Clair, this is where I wanted to circle back before we get into the game itself and what we saw. St. Clair was not with Inter Miami during the 15 minutes that we were able to see practice last Wednesday and the previous Saturday, when it was the day one of la pretemporada, of preseason. Javier Mascherano was asked flat out by one of my colleagues last Wednesday if St. Clair was with the team. I'm not even going to say what he said. I'm just going to let you hear it. I did play the soundbite last week, but with regards to Rocco Rios Novo and the revelation that he might come back. But I want you to hear Mascherano's direct response so that there's no misinterpretation or that I'm not presenting this correctly. This is what Mascherano said when he was asked directly about St. Clair having arrived.
¿Quién ya llegó? De los jugadores, ¿quién ya están aquí? ¿Y quién todavía no?
Los que han visto. Los que han visto ¿Cuándo fue el sábado, no? No, ni Sancler ni Rocco, que estamos negociando todavía, pero es una opción. Y el resto, bueno, lo que...
So he was asked by our beloved colleague Michelle Kaufman of the Miami Herald, who has arrived? And Mascherano's initial response is the people you guys have seen, right? The people you guys have seen on day one of preseason. He's asked directly about St. Clair by another colleague. And as you heard, he says flat out, no. He has not arrived. Neither has Rocco Rios Novo, who is an option. Mascherano realizing he had a slip of the tongue and kind of gave away that Rocco Rios Novo was officially an option, because Mascherano doesn't talk about players that aren't his, and Rocco Rios Novo wasn't officially signed at that point. But that was his response. Now, if you go back to day one of preseason, which was again 2 Saturdays ago, and St. Clair was not seen by us, and according to Mascherano, was not there. Now, how do you explain this picture or this image from Lionel Messi's Instagram? Yes, Lionel Messi posted a video to his Instagram that says primer día, which means first day or day one. Volvimos. We're back. 2026. And clearly you see Dane St. Clair in the background with his gloves on, cleats on, clearly present. So what did Mascherano mean by available or arrived? Sorry, not available. Arrived and saying no? I'll leave that to you guys to come up with your conclusions. But clearly, Dane St. Clair was in camp. So I don't know what arrived means. Ha llegado. I don't know what that means if Mascherano says no. But I'll let you guys figure it out. Rico de la Vega said 4511 says Trump holding up St. Clair visa. Well, St. Clair did play in Peru on Saturday, but Peru's not the United States. So, and I try not to get political here. We try not to talk, but I thought it was funny. All right. Well, St. Clair starts, so we can talk about the game. And before we do, I want to give my opinion or my stance. Look, it's the first game of preseason. It's not a whole lot you can really draw from it from an analytical standpoint, because Inter Miami's a week or so into getting their legs under them, regaining fitness, sharpness after more than a month away from the game, right? They're on holiday, they're on vacation, the holiday break. So this game's more about, getting some understanding with one another, but it's more about getting your legs underneath you. It's more about just getting a run out, building the foundation, or continue to build the foundation for the season that is to come. So that's the biggest starting point here for this game. There's things we can talk about that we saw from both teams and from Inter Miami's side, but that is that's the starting point, because this is not a regular match where Inter Miami's in form and they're 2 months into their season, and Alianza Lima also isn't. They're at the start of their preseason. They're not. It's not like they're in midseason form. But that has to be taken into consideration in any analysis or in any conversation, in my opinion. Now, from what we saw from Inter Miami, was a team that looked like they were shaking off their offseason cobwebs. A lot of rust. Not very many good performances. Lionel Messi had his moments on the ball, but wasn't wow. Dane St. Clair might have been the best player on Inter Miami for me. And he still gave up 3 goals. Although I don't really put the blame on him for the goals. He also had some really good saves that helped Inter Miami avoid a bigger defeat, a more lopsided result in Peru. Probably made the biggest impression on day one in terms of Inter Miami performances. Now the goals for, and you can hear Georgina crying in the background maybe, but the goals for Alianza Lima, the first two come off of a first half brace from Paolo Guerrero, the Peruvian national team striker, who, to some people's surprise, that didn't know about him when I tweeted it out, he's 42 years old. Paolo Guerrero is probably playing the last season of his historic career. And he scored 2 goals against Inter Miami. One off a rebound. The other one off of a clinical finish, a very Paolo Guerrero type of finish in the box. Now, the first goal comes off of a Rodrigo de Paul mistake. Rodrigo de Paul is trying to build out after a corner kick or after a set piece. Rodrigo de Paul tries to play instead of hoof the ball to safety, which is fine. That's Inter Miami style. They want to play. But he makes an errant pass. He makes a bad decision and loses the ball in a bad spot. Alianza Lima quickly transitions that into another attack with a lot of numbers forward. Ultimately leads to Paolo Guerrero scoring off the rebound on a header. The images, the aesthetics of watching Paolo Guerrero, who's grown out, Peluca Falcon type fro, was humorous, at least for me and my Peruvian family as we watched the game. Because it just looked like Peluca versus Peluca. But Paolo Guerrero scores that goal. So I don't know if you want to chalk that up to a set piece and Inter Miami continuing to be weak on set pieces and a second wave of attack. I don't know if you want to chalk that up to Rodrigo de Paul being careless or not sharp enough in the build-out. I don't know if you want to chalk that up to poor defending. You could even say maybe Dane St. Clair. You can make the argument maybe you should have done better on the initial save and not put it in harm's way. Whatever the case is, Inter Miami falls behind to a player that is, yes, at the end of his career, but he's still very good. He's still very good. And in the air, where he's been lethal for so long, I mean, I don't expect Peluca Falcon to win that matchup more often than not in the air. I just don't expect that to happen. Paolo Guerrero, if you don't know anything about his career, he's been very good with the ball in the air. Good at headering it, good at bringing it off his chest. So I don't expect Peluca Falcon to win that. Peluca Falcon is a good player, much younger. But Paolo Guerrero in his prime is 10 times the player Peluca was or is now. And that hierarquía, that know-how doesn't disappear. And you could see the way Paolo Guerrero at different times, the way he would receive the ball at midfield and use his body, he's a tall striker, against Inter Miami's midfielders and defenders. He would just earn fouls, alleviate the pressure, and allow Alianza to start further up the field, start a sequence with a dead ball situation further up the field. So that hierarquía was on full display. On the other end, you had Luis Suarez, who has a lot of hierarquía, but physically, clearly, he just doesn't have it anymore. Clearly. Now, I do expect Luis Suarez to score some goals this year. I don't think he's going to be goalless in 2026. There's enough games. There's enough moments. MLS defenses, especially when you get to the lower levels and the lower quality teams, he's going to have some goals this year. No doubt about it. Maybe some will be important. But physically, he's nowhere near the level where Paolo Guerrero is. And I'm not comparing Luis Suarez to Paolo Guerrero in terms of their careers. Luis Suarez has had a much better career. Definitely at the club level. You could argue maybe at the national team level, but absolutely he's had a better career. And he was at his prime. Luis Suarez was better than Paolo Guerrero. I'm Peruvian American. I will tell you that. I'll admit that. I'll acknowledge that. I wouldn't lie to you about that. But today, this day and age, this Luis Suarez at 39 is not better than this Paolo Guerrero at 42. And that just shows that Luis Suarez is well past it. And you need Germán Berterame to get here ASAP if you're Inter Miami. Now, there's positive developments apparently in that department. Berterame is training individually off to the side. He's not training with his club team. So sounds like or seems like the transfer agreement is close. Probably a matter of dotting the I's, crossing the T's. But for Inter Miami's sake, they need him as soon as possible. As soon as possible. You need him to get with the group, integrate with his teammates, figure out the movements, especially for CONCACAF Champions Cup, especially now since you've probably lost a starter at left back in Sergio Reguilon. So you're going to have to help offset for what you might lose in that department. Jose, our beloved Jose Armando, aka Cinco, aka Island Jose, is not here, obviously. But that doesn't mean we can't debate about one of his takes, because he said this on Twitter, and I had to have a little back and forth conversation with him earlier this week. Suarez addresses a tweet from Antonio Castillo. And Antonio Castillo says, está mucho mejor que el ya caducado Suarez. Which I believe this is referencing Paolo Guerrero. And he's saying Guerrero's better than Suarez right now. Jose responds, en otro rol, yo jamás descartaría a Suárez. Todavía tiene la capacidad para marcar diferencia. Repito, en un rol estratégico correcto para él. Luis Suárez es Luis Suárez. So to translate, he says in another role, he wouldn't rule out Suárez. Suárez still has the ability to make the difference, and that in a strategic role, it could benefit him. And Luis Suárez is still Luis Suárez. So I have a back and forth where I tell Jose, por favor, Paolo Guerrero con 42 años, hoy en día es más que esta versión de Luis Suárez. Which Jose, of course, in a very Jose way, says, es una falta de respeto comparar a Luis Suárez con toda su trayectoria con Paolo Guerrero. Where Jose is off the mark, in my opinion, is that I am not comparing Paolo Guerrero's career to Luis Suárez's career, which I tried to just make clear before I went into that tweet or those tweets. But the present day versions of these players, it's night and day. Luis Suárez has a wide open opportunity in the second half. A ball comes to him wide open at the back post. You would expect Luis Suárez, I don't care if he's had a month off or not, you would expect Luis Suárez to at least get it on frame, at least challenge the goalkeeper. You're wide open. And we saw what we saw for a lot of last year, which was an off-the-mark Luis Suárez. This opportunity against Alianza Lima that he should have at least put on frame. If you want to say it's not a goal, though, I think it should be a goal. That look should be a goal. He opens up his hips. He has the whole far post to aim at. At least put it on frame. What does he do? Skies the ball over the top corner. Sure, it's preseason. Sure, he's getting his legs underneath him and shaking off the rust like everybody else. But this is what we saw from Luis Suárez last year, which was a drop-off from 2024 and the level he was at in 2024. So people can point to the statistics. People can point to the numbers. Look, MLS is a league that counts secondary assists towards your total assists numbers. So if you want to point to stats to make the case and a compelling argument for Suárez being quality still to this day, well, I don't buy it. I'm not going off of just statistics because the eyeballs don't lie. Your eyes do not lie. Los ojos no mienten. And you can see that on the field, he's just not the same player. And there's no shame in that. You know, clearly his knees or his legs they hurt him, right? He looks in discomfort when he's out there. They clearly look to limit his movements and his runs, his speed, and his ability to make an impact. That does not take away from his career. Decorated career, controversial but decorated career. Tremendous player. of the best number 9s of recent generations, if not of all time. But today, that's not the Luis Suarez that Inter Miami has. So while Inter Miami will be delicate and careful about how they talk about Suarez, and Javier Mascherano wants to say that everyone starts from zero, and I asked them about Suarez, I mean, the reality is last year, you saw what Suarez provided. He was on the decline. And that's why he ended up falling out of the starting lineup during the key part of the postseason push. Didn't even see a single minute in the MLS Cup final. Again, I see Luis Suarez having a role on this team, and I do see him scoring goals. I don't share Jose's optimism that if you use him strategically, he's going to be a different type of player. Or he's going to produce at different levels. Look, it's better to have him on the bench than not, but clearly he's far and away from what he was. And again, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. Let's see what the comment section says, because I see the comments coming in, but I'm trying to keep eye contact with you guys, and it's just a lot going on. I hear the baby crying in the background. Let's see. Mike _V. St. Clair spilled the ball and his passing was terrible. Worse than Calendar. St. Clair, less than Calendar. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair takeaways and analysis. Again, first game for him after not being present, according to Javier Mascherano. Mike V adds, Paolo Guerrero showing Suarez how to age gracefully. Claudio Rapston 7179 says, these CONMEBOL shitheads. I guess Claudio, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you're mad about the stream or Alianza's style. Look, Alianza definitely was up for it. Alianza Lima was, it was a preseason game, but they went in hard. They took it seriously. So it was a good test. It's a good test, a good first test for Inter Miami as they prepare. Obviously not the results that you want to see. You'd rather win 3-0 than lose 3-0. So that part will sting a little bit, but it was a good test in terms of getting ready for what's to come. Sean Callahan 8080 says 7 goals, 8 assists would be nice for Suarez this year. Nader 10LM says, even as a backup, it doesn't make sense having Suarez still in the team. There's nothing he can offer from the bench. Either start him or let him retire. Boss Daddy 85 says strategic role in air quotes means Suarez plays against the mid to lower tier MLS teams only. More Suarez remarks here. Mike V says Suarez doing his best Gene Mota impression, laying the ball off. Nader again. Suarez refuses to retire. Force him, just like Bielsa did for Uruguay. Luis Barrios, this team needs to go back to what made them champs. Do whatever is needed to get Baltasar back as he makes Silvetti work. Obviously, Suarez's role will be something we keep an eye on throughout the course of the year. Again, I think he scores goals. So when he does, I don't want the Suarez bots or the Suarez fans to come out and be like, oh, look, you were wrong. If he has a good season, I'll lift up my hand at the end and say he had a good season. What defines a good season? Just making an impact. A positive impact more than a negative impact. That would be a good season for Luis Suarez. And that's not just by stats. That's also by performance levels, how he does on the field. In all ways. But yeah, that will be a storyline. Germán Berterame scored a goal for Mexico. Mexico had a couple of friendlies. Berterame played in both. He scored 1 goal. So good signs for Inter Miami's likely upcoming striker addition. You imagine he gets that number 9 role. Suarez to the bench. See how that goes. Francisco Garcia says, Suarez ya ni con caja de diente muerde. Yeah, which means, well, I don't really know what caja de dientes. I don't know what the translation for that is in English. But saying Suarez doesn't have any bite anymore. A couple of other news items that came out after we recorded last week is that Tomas Aviles has been sent to CF Montreal for the season. I believe it's a loan with an option to make it permanent. I think. I don't think it was an outright transfer. Could be wrong. But that move resolved Inter Miami's under 22 conundrum. They had to get rid of one of the under 22 players to become roster compliant by the start of the year. Well, they quickly resolved that. This was not something that was going to get dragged out like we've seen in other instances with not only Inter Miami, but other teams. So they part ways, at least temporarily, with Thomas Aviles, who maybe gets a first start in Montreal. I did say this about Thomas Aviles when that deal was announced. I think Thomas Aviles has the talent to be a starter in Major League Soccer. I don't know if he has the maturity, the mentality, the level-headedness to be a starter in Major League Soccer. Those are where the biggest question marks come with Thomas Aviles. Talent is there. I'm not saying he's the most talented player in the world, but the talent is there to start on a team in this league. It's a matter of avoiding the recklessness that has plagued him in his decision-making. Normally that leads to, that's been a result of red cards, yellow cards, harsh fouls that could lead to sending offs, just sheer recklessness. There was the one image, thinking from maybe a couple years ago, maybe when Tata Martino was still head coach, where off the ball, Toto Aviles elbows, I think, Jacob Schaffelberg in the chest, just off the ball, not even close to the ball. The ball's on the other side of the field. Nashville was clearly up in arms about that. But Inter Miami got away with that. It's just things like that, moments where he gets, rushes of blood to the head, momentary lapses in judgment. If he can take that out of his game, then I think there's a player there that can contribute as a regular starter in this league. If he can't, if he just continues to be careless, carefree, indifferent, then I don't know if he's long for MLS. Probably will end up back in Argentina if things don't change. But we'll see. We'll see. It'll be something to keep an eye on from afar from here in South Florida. Sean Callahan confirms that Aviles was a loan move. All right, so my memory still works sometimes. Rico de la Vega 4511 says Aviles is freezing his balls off. I'm not gonna lie, I did think about that when the move happened. Not him freezing his actual balls off, but going from South Florida, where he probably feels, pretty at home, at least off the field, right? Latin community by and large. He's got the Argentine core that's on the team as well. Now he's going to Montreal, in another country, Canada. Completely different culturally. Completely different from the sporting level. I'm sure he probably welcomes, we haven't got a chance to talk to him, but I'm sure he probably welcomes the change of scenery from a sporting aspect. But in terms of lifestyle off the field, yeah, that's a big switch. That's a big switch. Boss Daddy 85 says, or when Aviles decided to take a nap in the box that led to an Atlanta goal. And that goal that Boss Daddy's referring to is one of the crucial goals that led to Inter Miami's elimination in Tata Martino's final season. Messi's first full season in South Florida, in MLS, where they got shocked by Atlanta United. And we never really got a real answer as to what happened there. I guess he just decided to think he was going to get play to stop because he threw himself on the ground. I asked him at the beginning of last year, and now this kind of just was like, oh, we're moving forward. We're not thinking about that. One day we'll get an answer, I'm sure, maybe hopefully not in the too distant future, but one day it'll come out. Normally things are talked about enough and they come out at some point. They come out. Let's see. What else? Mike V says we should loan out David Ruiz. Poor kid is rotting on the bench. I know he was hurt, but dang. Well, David Ruiz did make his return in this game against Alianza Lima. talked about being back. At least during the first half of the year, there's a chance for him to see minutes as you have rotations, as you have injuries, suspensions. The games will come heavier than for most other teams in MLS because, again, there's CONCACAF Champions Cup. So there's a chance for David Ruiz to get minutes. I don't know if long-term, he's an answer or he has an established or defined role. Yes, he's a homegrown, but at some point, maybe he'll look to go elsewhere. Especially, look, summertime, if Benjamin Kremaski's deal at Parma doesn't translate to a permanent transfer, Benjamin Kremaski's coming back to Inter Miami this year. So that would potentially or could potentially lead to even less minutes for David Ruiz. Although, who knows if Inter Miami even wants Benjamin Kremaski back at all. Mike V says, right now, Thomas Aviles is asking, what the is this poutine BS? If you don't know what poutine is, if you don't know what Mike V is referencing, I guess in New York, they're called disco fries. That's the best comparison I can give you. But it's really freaking good. And in Montreal, it's like a huge staple, part of their culinary culture. It's essentially French fries, mozzarella cheese, gravy, and then you can make it super fancy and add, if you want vegetables, you can add vegetables. If you want to add different style meats, you can do that. But the base is French fries, gravy, and mozzarella. It sounds pretty basic, but it's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. When I went to Montreal 2015 for CONCACAF Champions League with my my old boss, Ives Galarset, I was introduced to poutine. It was very good. Heavy, but very good. It's called disco fries, I guess, in the Northeast, or at least in the New York, New Jersey area. Yeah. Francisco Garcia says, poutine son salchipapas canadienses. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. That's pretty good. Another news item from last week or after last week's show was recorded was the Inter Miami will be playing in Puerto Rico. Yes, they announced a preseason friendly, the 4th. Let's see here. I don't know the date off the top of my head. You're asking for too much, guys. No, I'm just kidding. But it's on February 13th, so the day before Valentine's Day in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. They'll be playing Ecuadorian champions Independiente del Valle. So there you go. Another friendly to add to the list. You want a quick trip with the missus or the mister, and you want to head down. Flight won't be too expensive, I imagine, and it won't take very long. Could be a quick little getaway for Valentine's Day weekend. You can package it like I do and just kill two birds with one stone. Be like, babe, we're going to Puerto Rico. It's beautiful and tropical, just like here, but a little bit different. We can just get away for the weekend for Valentine's Day. And then once you're there, you're like, oh, by the way, there's a soccer game that we're going to go to. It'll be smooth. It'll be effortless. It'll work. Look, I'm going to Medellin, so I'm killing two birds with one stone. I'm in good with the missus. She thinks we're just going to go spend time with her family. No, she knows there's a game. But yeah, kill two birds with one stone. Aside from that, if I'm analyzing a little bit more for the collective, because I've done a lot of the individual. Defensively, the team didn't look great. They had their hands full. And this was an Alianza Lima team that, as I mentioned before, was missing 3 starters. Although they're more on the defensive side. But yes, Alianza Lima was missing Carlos Zambrano, center back, Miguel Trauco, left back, and Sergio Peña, central midfielder. All Peruvian national team players, and not like players at the beginning of their careers. They're veterans closer to the end of their careers. And even with those absences, Inter Miami still struggled. Defensively, it didn't look great in transition. The midfield didn't offer a whole lot of resistance. There were times when Alianza Lima would counter after winning the ball off of an errant pass or bad touch. And that midfield just did not provide a lot of resistance. You know, Yannick Bright, you're used to seeing him break things up a good bit. Even he was missing for large stretches at times. But again, Bright, Segovia, and Rodrigo de Paul all getting their feet underneath them. But a lot of similar concerns, right? This is still a championship team in MLS, or they're coming off a championship. But every team has strengths and weaknesses, and the weaknesses we saw against Alianza Lima, with the caveat that their first game of preseason was more of the same, right? Transitions, set pieces, Suarez not being great. So it's more or less much of the same. But once Berterame arrives and Tadeo Allende arrives, he still hasn't, from what we know, we haven't seen him. Once those pieces arrive, the team should be a little bit stronger. Luis Barrio says Avilas needs a brain transplant. Claudio Rabston 7179. Only thing missing in Miami is the CONCACAF Champions Cup and the US Open Cup. And Inter Miami could have had the US Open Cup. Don't forget, in Messi's first season, they hosted the Houston Dynamo in the US Open Cup final, but lost. Messi didn't play in that game. If I'm not mistaken, he was dealing with the Copa America ankle injury that he suffered. Okay, I think I've touched on most things. I guess the last thing to do is Inter Miami versus Atletico Nacional this weekend in Colombia, Medellin on Saturday. I will be there. 5 o'clock kick. I believe it's being streamed again on OneFootball. If you don't know what OneFootball is, well, it's where the last preseason friendly against Alianza Lima was streamed for $5. You can watch it in English or in Spanish, up to you. At least that was the case for this first friendly. I watched it in English. Didn't love the commentary. They even said at one point that one of the commentators said that he thought the Peruvian First Division was better than MLS, which I'm as proud Peruvian American as you'll find. Orgullosamente peruano americano. But to me, that's just not knowing the material, not knowing your stuff, because there's no way you can have that opinion, in my opinion, if you watch either league. Peruvian, maybe the top 3 teams could be competitive in MLS, maybe, but the quality is pretty low. The fields are terrible. It's a common discussion in Peru, but this is not a show about Peruvian soccer. So, yeah, OneFootball is where to go, unless you do the illegal thing and try to find a stream. If you have a Fire Stick, maybe you can watch it on a Colombian channel. I know some people that I know watched it on Latina, which was the Peruvian channel that aired the last game. So there's ways to watch the game, but the official one is OneFootball for $5. It's not terrible. $5, yeah, worth some football. It's not great quality. At least the game in Alianza or in Lima against Alianza Lima wasn't great quality. To be fair, or at least to give OneFootball credit, I don't know if it'll get better this weekend, but Alianza Lima Stadium is not the most modern. It doesn't have the best amenities. So I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, OneFootball had one arm tied behind its back in that aspect, though I can't imagine they were going to go, high quality production either. So we'll see how it goes at the stadium in Medellin this weekend, which is a bit nicer, a bit more modern. Boss Daddy 85 with the illegal admission. We'll say it's a joke so you don't get in trouble. Boss Daddy 85 says, I found the YouTube link last game. Francisco Garcia says, RCN television on Open TV with VPN. Maybe. Francisco Garcia says, Nacional is signing Chicho Arango. I did see something on Chicho Arango before the show started, but I guess it was Nacional. I mean, I didn't get a good enough look to fully process it in my brain, but I did see he was on the move. He is Colombian, so would make sense. What to look for Inter Miami? Just more of them getting their feet underneath them. Again, not yet time for deeper tactical analysis, in my opinion. I think maybe by the third game, then we can start to analyze a little bit more the collective showing and how they look as a group. We'll see, we'll have 3 matches, 3 bodies of work to analyze patterns, and I think after 3 games we'll have a better idea. This one we'll have our takeaways, of course, but I'd be cautious to have huge talking points after 2 games. Inter Miami's still getting their feet underneath them, still getting pieces in, so still work to be done, especially with that Reguilon injury that we talked about earlier on the show. Hopefully for Inter Miami's sake and just confidence sake, you bounce back, you score a goal. I imagine they will. Do they win? I don't know. Inter Miami has not had availability this week. They will do so on Wednesday morning. I'm a bit of a risk taker. I was going to try to go. I was going to try to make it. Availability's in the training facility. But my turnaround from when the availability is and the interviews are to the flight, it's like an hour and change. And while it's close in proximity and I think I could make it, I don't want to push it. If I was single, I'd push it. But I have a baby and a missus who will be at the airport waiting for me. And if I don't catch that flight, I'm probably going to get a big talking to. So I might not be able to make training tomorrow, but I will be present at the game on Saturday. And part of me is really kicking myself that I can't make it to training tomorrow because the 2 players speaking are Dane St. Clair and David Ruiz. I think David Ruiz is the other one. I would like to talk to Dane St. Clair, be his first official Inter Miami interview, but schedule's too tight. So alas, family over football. Boss Daddy 85 says it wasn't me streaming it, just a YouTube video. He came across. Rico de la Vega. Do you remember the channel's name? Y'all are hilarious. Stancy says the Latina commentary was on point. So talking about One Football. If that's the case, if Stancy is right with that, then and you understand both languages, go for the Spanish one. I went with English because I agree that Spanish commentary is usually better than English in general, but English tends to have more information, at least when it comes to MLS on the MLS broadcast. So I watch in English, not because I think it's a more enriching football listening and watching experience, but just because there might be, as a journalist, as a media member, as a reporter that covers the team and the day-to-day, there might be some tangible nugget of information that you don't get in Spanish. In Spanish, you're going to get better humor, which might be one of the last things you're looking for, but you'll get better humor, better commentary, better analysis, better punditry, better passion. But in English, sometimes there's better nuggets. So I watched it in English. It was dreadful. Sorry to the 2 commentators who did it. I think they're Brazilian. It wasn't great. But I don't blame you. You probably were thrown that on your plate very last minute, as these things tend to happen. All right. So that does it. Watch the game in Spanish this weekend. I won't watch the game in English or Spanish. I'll be in the stadium taking it all in. Follow me at Franco Panizo on Twitter, on X for live updates from the stadium, tweets, sights and sounds, things that you won't be able to get when you watch it on the broadcast. Hopefully there's some interviews afterwards. Not sure if there will be, but hopefully there is. So then can bring you guys some more content and sights and sounds from Inter Miami as it continues to move forward with its preseason preparations as CONCACAF Champions Cup action draws closer. I wanted to bring Georgina back. I wanted to try again, but I think she's sleeping. So we will leave it there. I will be back. We will be back here at Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I fly back Monday. Maybe we could do a show Monday, but it might be tough. Monday or Tuesday. I'll confirm with you guys. Excuse me. I'll confirm with you guys next week. I saw someone earlier ask if I could do a blog of the city. I've been to Medellin before. It's a lovely city. Eterna Primavera is what they call the city's nickname, which means eternal spring, because it's always kind of chilly, cool. It'll be 50s, 60s, and kind of rainy from what I've seen on the weather. I need to go pack, actually. It's going to be very cold in South Florida this weekend and in these coming days. Maybe as low as the 30s. I saw even somewhere 20s. So stay warm. Get your hot cocoa, your hot chocolate ready, your blankets, your sweaters, your sweatpants. If you're into wearing boots, bring out the fur boots. But yeah, stay warm, guys. I will be back, hopefully with some colleagues next week. Maybe we'll try again with Georgina. Maybe she'll be in better spirits. I don't know. I honestly don't. Maybe she was overwhelmed with I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe from the transition from the Miami Total Football intro page to just us. I don't know what happened, but she clearly wasn't a fan. But anyway, we will leave it there. Thank you guys again for tuning in, for keeping me company here. If it wasn't for you guys, I'd be very, very alone here, talking to myself. So always appreciate the banter, the comments, the opinions, the analysis, your guys' stances. Even when I have co-hosts, it's one of the best parts of the show. So we'll leave it there for now. I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening or watching Miami Total Football Radio. Give us a like, a share, subscribe, a review, hit the little bell button. I'm flying off to Colombia tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.